Good morning all, this is Jarrett Ryan here, brand manager for Bluesound Professional at Amber Technology. We've got a lot to get through today. We've got about an hour long webinar, so we'll get straight into it. Hosting today's webinar is Graham Harrison. He's the GM at Bluesound Professional. So without further delay, I'll hand over to Graham.
Okay, thank you very much, Jarrett. Glad to be here. I should give you a little bit of background on myself because that'll help you understand about Bluesound Professional. I've been in the business for decades now, for about 30 years. I was involved with Biamp. I ran their sales, marketing, and product management teams. And I left Biamp in just after they were bought by a private equity company in 2017, and was wondering what to do next, and had a variety of offers, but decided on maybe a little less obvious option of starting a new company. And that new company is Bluesound Professional. So the reason that I decided to start this, to do a joint venture and start this, is simply because I've never had the opportunity to be first in market before. And Bluesound Professional is the world's first purpose-designed range of streaming audio hardware, specifically designed for use in commercial spaces. So there are loads of products that are designed for residential spaces. Yes, Sonos have built a multi-billion-dollar company out of it. Most hi-fi brands, electronics brands, have some form of streaming multi-room system. But in commercial spaces, you've basically had three choices. If you're a big multinational, you're going to go to Mood Media and pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to have custom curated streams that you will download into a special player, which is like a NUC computer, and and you'll replay it from there. If you're smaller than a big kind of a Starbucks or a Zara or an H&M or someone like that, you have two choices really. You can use hi-fi equipment, and you see plenty of Sonos and Bose stuff being used in restaurants and bars and cafes and shops and things. Or you as an integrator can give your customer a line input with a 3.5mm jack and tell them to get on with it. And both of those options are flawed, deeply flawed actually. So the idea of doing something no one else had done before is pretty compelling. And Bluesound Professional literally has no competition in the marketplace at the moment. It didn't when we launched the company, it still doesn't some 3 years later. By the way, I forgot to mention, if you want to ask any questions, you're very, very welcome to do so. There's in your GoToWebinar control panel, there is a questions tab. So please just write your question in there. I will answer it either when you ask it, when I get to that point, if I'm going to cover what you're asking anyway, or if all else fails at the end. Anyway, Bluesound Professional is actually a joint venture, and the main shareholder is a company called Lenbrook, which is a group of companies in Canada. The actual family have been running companies for over 100 years now, and this particular iteration, Lenbrook, has been in business for just about 45 years now. And Lenbrook's a distributor of hi-fi equipment and mobile phones and industrial pages and things. But over the years, it's bought some of its suppliers. So in the 1980s, it bought PSB Loudspeakers, a Canadian speaker company. Stands for Paul and Sandy Barton, and Paul is still with us, voicing all of our speakers. About 10 years later, in the late 90s, we bought a British hi-fi electronics company called NAD, and we moved everyone to Toronto, which is where Lenbrook's based. And some of their employees are still there. Tarish, who runs engineering, is an ex-NAD employee. And about 10 years ago, we got involved in multi-room streaming. and networking and things. And we originally were going to do that under the NAD brand name, but we decided to form a new company called Bluesound to do that. And Bluesound has become highly successful. We're the kind of audiophile equivalent to Sonos. So if you actually want more than, say, 44.116 or compressed audio, you're probably going to come to us. And we've had well over 500,000 installations of Bluesound equipment around the world. And that's important because the operating system, BlueOS, that Bluesound uses, Bluesound Professional also uses. We also license it to Monitor Audio, DALI, Roxanne, Peachtree, Cirrus in the residential space. And BlueOS is a Linux-based operating system. It runs on ARM processors in every one of the units. And what it does is it joins up disparate pieces of equipment made by different manufacturers sometimes, and it gives you a really intuitive way of controlling that total system on your phone, your tablet, your laptop. And it links all of the products made by different manufacturers, including Bluesound Professional. So some of the features are a simple and intuitive app interface, as I mentioned, to control all BlueOS products. The app is a free download for Windows, Mac OS, Android, iOS, Amazon Kindle Fire, Apple Watch. There's a whole load of them. So you can basically control it however you like. Oops, back one. A Amazon Alexa skill set and Google Home action set. Those are in gray because originally we disabled those in the Pro products because we didn't want people trying to voice control sound systems in a crowded bar, for example, with their voice. But we put it in during the pandemic because it's a touch-free way of controlling an AV system. So the Pro products do respond to the voice commands. We support advanced multi-zone control, either fixed groups or temporary groups. When you group players, they play perfectly time aligned. So you can have zones that are adjacent to each other without necessarily doors between. And if you group them, all of the players will be perfectly in sync. We support high-res streaming up to 192.24. Have done since the Bluesound product was launched 10 years ago. So we're kind of the darlings of the high-res crowd. We support it natively all the way through to the DAC. Using our players, you can share music from many sources. So you can, for example, share network content from any network attached drive, any NAS, or from any computer on the network, or from any USB drive connected to a computer on a network, or from USB drives connected directly into the back of our products. Or you can share internet radio from all over the world. We can do custom URLs. So some companies host private streams for their branches from the head office, and we can point the players to those. We support a large number of streaming services, and I'm going to get onto those in a minute. And most of the players have analog inputs of some sort. So when you use one of these players, you've got a wide variety of things you can listen to. We're MQA certified, that stands for Master Quality Authenticated, and that's important because it's what's behind Tidal Masters and Radio Paradise HD. You can do up to 64 players in a system on a network, or 64 zones. If you need more than that, and we're doing some installations that need more than that, you simply VLAN off to separate networks and run parts of your system on separate networks. So when you access local content from a NAS drive, the software, the BlueOS software, does an indexing process, and it pulls the metadata from that drive or drives, you can do more than one, and it then sends that to all of the players. So all of the players in their memory have the metadata of all of the tracks, who the album was, the artist was, what playlist it's on, what genre it is, the album artwork, all that sort of stuff. So once you've done the indexing from whatever device you did it from, you don't have to have that device on the system. You can put these products can play perfectly happily, totally by themselves without a computer or anything. Also, if you have an AS drive, you can stream up to 20 simultaneous different streams from it. So if you have a system like the Nobu Hotel in Chicago, where they have 20 zones and a central library of music, they can have different stuff coming out of each one of the zones if they want to. And finally, we support over-the-air updates, and we're always updating the product to add new music services. We added Google Home Action Set a year or two ago. We revoiced the speakers fairly recently, and all of these enhancements are backwards compatible to every product we've ever made. I talked about music services, and this is where we get into licensing in commercial spaces. So as I hope you know, you need a PRO license, for performing rights organization license, for any commercial space if you're going to play music. In Australia, the PRO is called One Music, and you need that license in your restaurant or office or hotel or bar or wherever it is where the general public comes in, if you're going to play music. That is the way by which musicians get compensated. And once you have that license, you can play records or the radio, you can have live bands in, you can do what you like. Even if you have that One Music license, though, you still cannot legally play Spotify or Tidal or Apple or Amazon or whatever, because the content is not licensed for replay in commercial spaces. So what's actually happened is a whole group of business music services have grown up in the last few years, and we currently support 5 of them. So QSIC is an Australian company. We work actually quite closely with QSIC, and we do some very large deployments around the world, primarily in quick service restaurants with QSIC. Tunify is only available in Europe, which is a shame because it's a really good service. Sirius is a well-known service in the States. Everyone knows Sirius because many people have it in the car. It's not the greatest business music service, and it's only available in the US. Custom Channels, their claim to fame is they have humans rather than algorithms curating the playlists. So they would say their playlists are extremely accurate. And finally, Sound Machine, that's probably the go-to music service that I'd recommend to you. It's available in Australia. It has 55 million tracks. It has over 500 radio stations. It allows for scheduling, announcements, either artist-led radio stations or mixes of radio stations. It has a really good integration with Bluos, and I'll show you that later on. As well as that, we support the residential services, because the harsh reality is in most commercial spaces, people use residential services. And even though technically it's illegal to do so, One Music, oh, pardon me, One Music isn't going to come after you if you paid their PRO, and Amazon and Tidal and people, Spotify aren't going to come after you because they've got nothing else to sell you. So it's technically illegal to do it, but the people that could come after you are the record companies and publishing houses, and they're unlikely to, come after Joe's Cafe in Melbourne, Australia, or whatever it is. So a lot of people use these Resi services. We encourage people to use business music services, but we accept that lots of them don't. We support high-res services, Cobuzz, high-res audio, and AuraStream. AuraStream's a variable bitrate lossless compression algorithm, which is very good. TuneIn and Radio.com are internet radio station aggregators. They're a really good way of finding radio stations from all around the world. Radio Paradise, iHeart, and Calm have their own apps, and we support those natively. These are newer services. We've supported Napster for a while, but Nugs and LiveX Live are live concert streaming, and Idagio is a classical music service. The Neil Young Archives is there for all fans of Neil Young. Sirius, we have the Resi equivalent to the Sirius for Business. And then these last three, Bugs, Thai, and KKBox, one's Taiwanese, one's Korean, and one's Chinese. So they're really regional services. So we support a great number of services, including 5 business music services. Still, no one's asked a single question. I'm amazed. Usually licensing and that sort of thing provokes some questions. Anyway, I'll keep going. Bluesound Professional. So I've talked to you about Lenbrook and I've talked to you about BlueOS. Why did we form a new company? For example, Sonos sell their gear into commercial installations as well as residential. Why on earth would we want a different company? Well, first of all, we have some technical differences. So all of our products, except the loudspeakers, are either rack mounted or certainly rack mountable. None of our products has any front panel controls, including a power switch, so you can't lean a chair up against an equipment rack and turn off your music server by mistake. We work at +4 dBu, reference 0 dB level, not -10 dBV like hi-fi equipment. You can run a hi-fi streamer into a commercial system, but you're going to have to boost the gain approximately 14 dB, which is also going to boost the noise approximately 14 dB because the signal to noise ratio doesn't change. So you end up with a noisy system running a consumer product into a professional sound system. Likewise, we are balanced on pluggable barrier strip for all of our analog inputs and outputs. Again, in commercial applications, you get a lot of mains-borne interference from chiller cabinets, from projectors, HVAC, fluorescent lights and stuff. And that's probably not a big deal in your house, but in a commercial environment, that's going to lead to hums and buzzes. And all of the commercial and pro equipment runs balanced, as do our players. Security. So it's a little known fact that if you install, say, Sonos in your coffee shop and you only have one network, it has the players on, you give your customers wireless access for internet, someone can waltz in there with their phone with the Sonos app on, find all of the players and play what they like. They can play, death metal or whatever it is they like. And the owner can do nothing about it. So we password protect all of our products. So by product, you can select for the products to be protected, and you can select any numbers of users and passwords so that each employee could have their own username and password if you like. Without that username and password, you can see what the players do, but you can't get in and change anything. Likewise for security, we don't have Bluetooth and we don't have AirPlay on purpose because neither of those is secure. Controls. Your mobile phone's a fantastic controller for your home, but do you want your employees on their mobile phones? Probably not, because they'll be on social media all the time. Or maybe the AV manager has his mobile phone as the AV system control, and he goes down to the local bank and you can't adjust anything. So we have a specialist wall mount panel, and we have third-party control drivers for most of the control systems from Crestron on downwards. And finally, we have some specialist features, which I will go into product by product. Hang on one second. Sure. There's a question here about custom streams. Yes, absolutely. You can stream custom stream from the head office. What you do is you use software that will encode it onto a URL, and then you put in the custom URLs in the players, and they point to that broadcast from the head office. You can do one or multiple ones of those, depending on how many different streams are coming from the head office. But yep, absolutely, you can do that. So why do we do a different company? The first reason is what I've just told you, make the products work better for the purpose for which they're designed. The second one is to signal to you integrators that we're serious about this. We're not just putting different name on hi-fi product and calling it good. We have a complete separate company. I've never worked in the hi-fi space in my life. I'm a consumer of it because I love music, but I've never worked in the industry. And we talk solely to commercial integrators. The third thing, and most important thing probably for you, is separate sales channels. We only sell through commercial system integrators. That means your customer has no access to the product, the end user. You spec in Sonos or our Resi gear, and maybe the end user goes, well, I've got a mate down the local hi-fi store, he'll sell it to me at trade, or let me go and look on Amazon, see how much I can find it for there. So integrators basically can't make the full margin on the product, whereas with our products, it's only available through commercial SIs, so the margins are protected. And finally, a different product roadmap. So as we move forward, we'll diverge more and more from the residential brands in the Lenbrook line because we don't have to worry about it. We're focused on selling stuff in commercial spaces. So the brand architecture is that you can use our stuff as line level output streamers. So you can add these things to any sound system. You can retrofit them into any sound system. You can use, if you're designing a new sound system, but you have a favorite amp or DSP or speakers, you can use those and just use us as a source component. Or you can include our amplification in the solution, either with standalone amp like the 860 or with a player amp in one box like the B160S. Or you can say, actually, no, we want to use you all the way through to the speaker, and actually we want to decentralize everything. So the streamers and the amps live in the speakers, and there's basically no front-end rack at all. And whichever method you want to do, you can add subwoofers to it. So you can use as much or as little of our ecosystem as you like. Going to the individual products, this is your like entry-level product. It's a one-zone streamer. You can literally go into your local restaurant, take their CD player out, put this thing in and say, welcome to the 21st century. You now have access to the wild and wonderful world of streaming, internet radio, custom URLs, network content, whatever you like. These I've mentioned. An important point is that all of the players have DSP in them. In fact, even the speakers have DSP in them. So it's not like a QSYS or a Biamp to Sierra or a SimNet or something like that. But it is appropriate DSP. So we have equalization, we have active crossover when using a subwoofer, we have leveling, we have scheduling, we have max and min volume, the sort of stuff you're going to need for streaming background music. So you can plug one of these things direct into a power amp and a pair of speakers and go. All of our streaming in all of our products but two is done wired Ethernet only. Again, on purpose, all of our Resi products support Wi-Fi, but Wi-Fi is really not a great idea in commercial installations because it will drop out some of the time. And that will be the integrator's fault, although it's obviously not, it's the network's fault. So to avoid people being tempted to do that, we took out any possibility of it and said, nope, you're using wired Ethernet only. And we make it easy in ways that you'll see later on. As I mentioned, we have balanced line analog outputs, but we also have both coax and optical digital outputs. We have a balanced line level subwoofer output. And as I mentioned, when you're using that subwoofer output, there is an adjustable crossover between the sub out and the main outs in the DSP. Here we have two local balanced mic or line inputs, analog inputs. So for example, with that restaurant that you walked into and you took the guy's CD player out and put this in, he might still have some special CDs that he wants to play sometime, and there might not be another input into the system. So he can plug his CD player directly into the streamer and switch over in software. Or imagine if you do, say, a corporate canteen, and for most of the month, they're just using it as background music. But one day a month, the CEO comes in and wants to do an all-hands meeting. They bring in a lectern, they plug a mic into a 3.5mm wall plate, and we map the cabling back to our streamer, and suddenly your background music system becomes a sound reinforcement system. Pluggable barrier strip, 48-volt phantom powering for the mic input. And this is a third rack space product. So you can mount 1, 2, or 3 of them in a 1RU rack mount chassis. Another question. Yep, another good question. Is the priority given to the mic line input, i.e. paging or alarm? No, it is not. So it's a switchable input. So in software, you switch between the mic or line input and the streaming or network library or whatever it is. So it's not a ducking mic input, it's a switchable mic input. We do have plans for a network paging station, which will bring that functionality to the product range. So if you're doing multiple zones, this is a really good idea. This is 4 of what you've just seen in a 1RU box. So this is a 4-zone player. It's like 4 players in 1RU. It costs somewhere between 2 and 3 of the 1-zone players. So any more than 2 zones, you're better off buying the 4-zone player. You can group just the same way as you can with all of our products. And in this case, all of our streamers have remote trigger inputs to turn them on and off remotely. This one, which also sort of answers the previous question, has a system interrupt contact closure, and you can mute the sound system from a contact closure input. So you can map that, connect that to your EWIS system, and have the alarm system mute the background music. The B160S is a 1-zone streamer, just like the first thing you saw, but with a 2x60-watt low impedance amplifier in it. It includes a standby mode, and you can mount up to 6 of them in a 3RU rack mount chassis. We will soon be coming out at the end of May, probably beginning of June, with another product called the B170S. And that's a slightly more powerful version of this. It's 2x80 watts rather than 2x60. But importantly, it also has a 100-volt output, 100-watt, 100-volt output. Initially, we wanted to steer clear of that for sound quality reasons, but so many people asked us about 70 and 100-volt that we decided, okay, we'll make a player for that. So that's coming out in a couple of months. This is a 8-channel power amplifier. It's really simple. It's a commodity item. There's no network connection, no monitoring. It's a dumb amplifier. There are 4 good things about this. It's well priced, it's reliable, it sounds good, and importantly, in these days, it's available from stock, like all of our products. So in these supply chain challenge days, we have managed to keep stocks of all of our products. Obviously, 8 channels goes well with the 4-zone streamer, because 4 stereo zones are 8 channels, or if you run them into mono, which you can do in software, then you could bridge the amp to be 4x120. This is everything in one speaker. So this is about a 20 centimeter high product, about a JBL Control 1 type size, maybe a little bigger. It's got a 3.5-inch bass driver and a 1-inch high frequency driver. You can pair them in stereo and they sound great. I have 2 in my kitchen. We do support wireless on this product. We left it in for the small business owner that wants to put, say, 2 of these, pardon me, 2 of these on a shelf behind the counter and doesn't want to muck about with an Ethernet switch. We still highly recommend wiring it. And there's an RJ45 there to allow you to do that. This has local analog and digital inputs. Like all of our products, has a USB input to replay from any local drives. It has a wall mounting bracket that you can buy and screw into a screw slot that's behind that rubber bung on the back, and it's available in either black or white. This is exactly the same thing, same size, same drive unit, but this uses PoE plus rather than mains power. So you walk into a lot of restaurants and the like and say, oh, what are you using for your sound system? And they'll go, well, we got one of those Sonos wireless systems. And I'll look up and I'll say, but there's a wire going to every single speaker. And they'll say, oh, yeah, but that's the power. And you'll go, well, yeah, but it's a wire, and you had to get an electrician in to wire an AC outlet near every speaker. So you have now expensive power because you had to get a permitted electrician in. And by the way, you still have unreliable media because you're doing that wirelessly. So you got the worst of both worlds. You got expensive power, unreliable media. By using PoE, in this case PoE plus 30 watt, one wire that an AV integrator can wire up allows for power and music. So you can put like 8 to 10 of these in a restaurant, a PoE plus switch, and that's your whole sound system. Don't need a rack anywhere, don't need anything else. They have the streamers built in, you can group them as you like. And they'll give you 102 dB maximum SPL, C-weighted at 1 meter. This is a wall mount control panel. It's a cool device. It's a low profile design. It's illuminated, so you can use it in dark environments. It's toughened glass surface and aluminium casework. So it's a really nice high quality piece of kit. It has a control lockout option to stop someone going to the toilet, seeing this lit up panel and pressing buttons to see what they do. It allows for control of volume with the plus and minus buttons, and play pause, which is also your mute with the center button there. And it also allows the recall of up to 5 programmable presets. This could be a playlist from a music service, a playlist from locally stored data, internet radio station, custom URL, even an analog or mic input. So you might have those 5 buttons be morning, lunchtime, afternoon, early evening, late evening, or just a choice of 5 different things that they can choose between. It's PoE powered, 15 watt standard PoE. It uses an RJ45 connection on the back, and it has a back plate that fixes over any international back box, including Australian. So you screw the back plate onto the back box, poke your Cat5 cable through, and then the main unit hinges down on 2 little tongue things at the top, and then there's a screw on the bottom that secures it into place. And you can use multiple ones in an installation. So you could have one, for example, behind the bar, one at the host station, they track each other and everything, no problem. It's very cost effective as well. These are incredibly popular at the moment. So these are slightly bigger speaker with a 5¼ inch low frequency driver. And again, an amplifier and streamer built in. Importantly, these are IP65 rated, so you can use them outdoors as well as indoors, which during and coming out of the pandemic is a big deal, certainly over here in the States, because more people are opening outdoor spaces to increase capacity, and because people feel safer out there. Again, it's PoE powered, and you can use either 30 or 60 watt PoE. You can get 100 dB max SPL, C-weighted 1 meter, with 60 watt PoE, about 3 dB less with 30 watt PoE. And it's available in black or white, and its wall mounting hardware is already included, as you can see in the left-hand picture there. This is its bigger brother. It has a 6.5-inch bass driver. It's also ported, but it comes with a rubber bung. So when you're using it outdoors, you put the rubber bung in to weatherproof it. There's actually a second EQ preset that's accessible via software to equalize the unit for being sealed enclosure versus a ported enclosure. Again, amp and streamer built in, indoor, outdoor, PoE powered again, same maximum SPL, but a lower bass roll-off frequency, so you get more bass out of it. And again, available in black or white. Then we have a subwoofer that you can pair with anything, a player amp, speakers. So 8-inch, 150-watt sub that will take things down to 22 Hertz. It's low profile. It's about 12 or 13 centimeters deep or tall if you put it on its back and slide it under a chair. It comes with a wall mount bracket. It has DSP. You pair it with everything else. It's software controlled. It does have some controls on the side panel, as you can see there, but you can defeat them in software, and we'd recommend you do. It has a low power standby mode, and it's the second product that's wireless, although again, we highly recommend that you wire it. And it's available in black or white. So with that, and still no more questions, I'm going to come out of this and show you the control software. So you should now see a big black screen with some album covers in the middle of it. If someone could just type yes as a question, that would be great, so I can see that you're seeing what I think. Thanks, Brett. So what you can see here in the bottom, nope, I'm playing that. Stop playing that. What you can see in the bottom here is a variety of players that I have in my network at the moment. Grouping players is as simple as selecting the primary and then grouping other things to it. And once you group things to it, you can move the master fader and all of the ones below it will move, or you can individually adjust the volume of just one of these. You can ungroup things by clicking the minus button, or you can ungroup them all by clicking the X button at the top. Can you control offsite, or do you need to be on the local network? Well, the answer is actually yes to both. So we have a chain of car warehouses or supermarkets, I think they're called, in the UK called Cazoo that we've done all of the supermarkets, similar to CarMax over here in the States. And they wanted to be able to control all of their branches from their head office. And they VPN into all of their branches, and we have a utility that allows them to traverse subnets. So they actually have a desktop similar to what you're looking at now at their head office, where they can see each individual player in each individual branch, and they can control them all. They originally wanted to do all control from there. Eventually, so even like volume control, that sort of thing, and they can, but they did trial the wall mount control panel out at one of their branches to give the local branch some limited control in addition, and they liked that so much they bought it for all the other branches as well. All I would say is if you're controlling multiple different physical locations, do not group them together. You can, but the problem is if you get a power outage or a network outage at one of them, it'll break the group and they'll all stop. So if that happened in the UK, just one branch would have to go down to take down the music in every single branch in the UK of this car warehouse. So you can do it, but don't do it. It's not good practice. There is another way of grouping, which more often you will do. So maybe I have a coffee shop and I have, I don't know, 3 or 4 speakers. So what I can do is go in and make a fixed group. And I'm going to make a multiplayer group, and I'm going to add that and that and restrooms. And select that, and I'm going to call it coffee shop. Oops, cough shop. Hang on a sec. And now it's a fixed group. And I can look in here, and I've just got one fader for coffee shop. But if I actually go into the audio settings, you will see there's trim pots for each of the speakers here. So I can set offsets for each individual speaker. For example, if some of them are further away from the public than others, I can set those to be louder. And that's how you do what's called fixed groups. You can do stereo fixed groups, multiplayer fixed groups. And you can also group groups. So here's a multi-zone group, here's a stereo pair. I can group those together in what we call super groups. So if I had like 8 speakers in a dining room, 4 speakers in a private dining room, sometimes I wanted to use them as a 12-speaker synchronized system, I can group those groups. And then when I finish, I just press the X button and they're ungrouped again into their 8 and 4 speaker zones. So grouping super simple, super flexible. Then we're going to come up here. I can set presets in here. So let me just take out my fixed group so I got more players to play about with. Take that one out. I can add presets. So I could, for example, select source here. I can say add my analog input as a preset, use the current volume. There we go, analog input. I can add a preset from, well, I'll say in this case, a Tidal playlist. Again, I will tell you that you're not supposed to use Tidal in commercial spaces. You can see here, there's a Tidal playlist. And I can store up to 40 of these presets in every player. And those, you have to be careful when you're storing presets, because when you group players together, the primary player, the first one you select, serves the presets up to all the other players. So make sure that you select the primary carefully. It can be any of them, but make sure it's the one with the presets in that you want shared across the group. Playlists are from everything. So my Bluesound playlist, my music library playlist, Deezer, Qobuz, Tidal playlists, showing 5 in each one. But if I click show all, it'll show all of my Tidal playlist. Likewise with favorites, artists. You can see the various artists I favorited on different music services here. I can do that with playlists, stations, whatever. My library is my library of locally stored content. I have just under 20,000 tracks stored on my local drive. You can see there's tons of A's and B's for artists. I just saw some Australian music there, the Black Sorrows. I can search them by whatever. This is actually taking content from 3 different sources. And I can see that because if I go to my music library and look for network shares, I can see I have 2 network shares here, plus I have some music on my local computer. I can also scan the network to find any drives that have content on them that I could take from, but this would lead me to have some duplicates because that's my backup drive, so I'm not going to do that. I can see my local share here. Indexing is done here to bring not peel the metadata, look at the metadata from all the tracks, store it locally on the players. Analog input, microphone input. For example, with the analog input, I can my player, customize sources, analog input. I could relabel it, say TV input, and make it look like a TV. Where's a TV? I suppose that's a TV. And I can add a lip sync delay to accommodate any latency in the TV, so that when you're in a sports bar, if you're looking at sports, for example, you can synchronize the lips on the screen to the audio coming out. Hang on, it's been a whole load of questions, so let me ask. Can you pair more than one sub to a stereo pair? You can pair up to 2 subs to any group, whether it's stereo pair or a multi-speaker system. After grouping, do players go back to their original state, i.e. what they were doing before grouping? No, they don't. So if you ungroup a player or a zone, the still grouped, the one that still has the primary in will continue playing what it was doing. The one that doesn't have the primary in is going to need to be told what to do next, because when it's in a group, the secondary players are kind of dumb players. They're taking input from the primary player. So once you ungroup them, it doesn't know what to do, because it's suddenly become a primary player, and it's like, okay, what do you want me to do now? And a commercial setup, would the local content sit on a NAS drive? It can sit on a NAS drive. It can sit on as I say, I've got 2 NAS drives on my network. In many local commercial setups, for example, we did the Nobu Hotel in Chicago. That has a central music library, 20 zones. They all, get content from that NAS drive. A lot of installations don't even use local content. They just use streaming service. You can use both. It's very, very flexible. Music service. So you can see here, it's relabeled this TV input now, because that's what I did. Music services. When you get the box and you open it, it'll have TuneIn, which is internet radio stations from all over the world. So I happen to have, I know there's someone from Kenya on this broadcast, so I can actually look up Kenyan radio stations in different towns. Or for those of you in Australia, I could say, okay, well, I want Triple J, because I like Triple J. So New South Wales, Sydney, Triple J unearthed. And there it's actually playing Triple J at the moment. Let's just stop that. So you get TuneIn and you get Radio Paradise out of the box. None of those other music services would show, because they're showing because I'm signed into them. I can sign into music services by going into the music services tab. Say Napster, it'll prompt me for a username and password. If I had that, I'd put it in and Napster would appear on this list here. I don't have a Napster account, so I can't do that. I'm going to go through some of these services, but apart from Spotify, where we're forced to use Spotify Connect, all of the other music services have really deep integrations. So here's Tidal, for example. I can see all of the new Tidal albums, what's come out in Tidal recently. Johnny Marr's got a new album out, interesting. I can go in and look at the masters, which is the MQA high res stuff. You can see it's masters because it has this like sine wave here. I can look at their recommendations for me. I can go in and look at popular mood genres, or I can go in and look at my Tidal, which is the albums I've played recently, which are down here. Or you can see I listen to fairly weird music, or the artists I like on Tidal. These are all the artists that I favorited over time. Playlists the same. Same thing, saying Qobuz looks very similar. Qobuz is natively high res. It's a really good music service. Then you get into, let me just check questions again, nothing else there, into settings. So alarms are the first thing. Alarms are scheduled events. So I could say, okay, at 5:55, oops, can't press a tab, 5:55, every day I want to play, I got any Deezer play? Yeah. My love tracks on Deezer on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I want those to play for 45 minutes and then stop. And this is the volume. If you don't see the right time setting in that menu, just put another event afterwards. And then here it is. I can set as many scheduled events as I like. I can turn them on and off. So that's a great way of doing scheduled events. The audio is going to show me let me just find a unit as my B160. There it is. So you have bass and treble controls. You can defeat them. You have a subwoofer output. Once you use the subwoofer output, you're going to be asked for a crossover point here. If you don't use a subwoofer output, you're not, because you've got a full range output and then on your main outs. You can do leveling by track, by album, or the smart gain. If you're using a commercial service, the leveling's already been done, so you wouldn't use that. Typically, on a stereo streamer, you'll probably either have it stereo or mono. Mono sends sub mono out to each of the outputs. And you can set volume limits. So I'd bring up the min volume from the very bottom so that you don't get support calls where your customer says, oh, it's broken, and you get there and they've just faded the volume all the way out to the bottom. Likewise, you can give yourself some protection at the top. If I go to a player, there's a player. It will also have this ability to set fixed output level. So if I'm outputting a player, say, into a DSP, and I want to do my level controls in the DSP, I can just set it to be unity gain. Yeah. Custom installation just allows you to name all the players in one place. You can do it by player as well. Then, if you go into help and you go into online support, you will see, oops, come up on my second screen. Let's move it over here. Hang on. Come on. Hang on a second. Let's come out of full screen with this. There we go. You can see our help page, which has a community down here for all of the Bluos brands, or you can go into individual brands like Bluesound Professional in this case and see some specific stuff like static IPs, password protection, this sort of thing. So you can get there directly from this button. The next button is send support request. That, if you have a problem, which you shouldn't, but if you do have a problem with one of our products, first thing you get the customer to do is fill in this form, put in Bluesound Professional in the top line, because it'll give you priority over all the residential customers. And what the problem is, your contact details, a description of the problem, send request. That will send a request to Tony and his team, but importantly, it'll also send a log file from the player to them so that they can usually find what the problem is without having to do anything more than look at the log file. Try to get your customer to send it as soon as possible after the problem occurs. because it's a log file, not a fault file. So you can get to a situation where the fault is, it's buried thousands of lines deep in activity code. So to give Tony and his team a chance, try and do it as soon as possible. I can check that my firmware is up to date and my desktop software is up to date. I can actually look and see what versions I'm using. And diagnostics, really useful. I can reboot my player remotely from diagnostics. I can see that this player's only been up for just over an hour because I plugged it in just before this webinar. As I go to some of my other players, I swear in the house, the dining room's been on for, let me have a look, 37 days. It's got 19,177 tracks of metadata in its memory, and its IP address is up there. The IP address of all of the other players in the system is down here. So I'm going to go into, what am I going to do? My B160S. So what I'm going to do is come out of here, and I'm going to go into a web browser. And I'm going to go 10.1.1.59, and there's my B160S going directly into its embedded web page. So I'm no longer in the app now, I'm in Firefox in this case, looking at the embedded web page. It's another way of getting into the players. I only have to remember one IP address because I can find all my other players from here. So if I go into my B400S, the IP address changes to 119. I'm going to go back to my 160. And we have some extra functionality you can do here. So you can go static IP. Whoops, if I could type properly, I could. And I can turn off DHCP, put in static IPs. Really useful if you're using a control system, or some customers don't allow DHCP. Not possible with Sonos. I can also go in here and put authorization in. My typing is appalling today. And it'll tell me that it's not safe. I'm going to tell it I don't care, I'm going on anyway. And this is where I can password protect this player. If I try and password protect it, it'll tell me I'm an idiot because I haven't set up any users. So I'll lock myself out of my own system. Don't want to do that. Can add users up here, as many as you like. There's two levels of password protection at the moment. User and authorization management allows someone everything. Upgrade only allows them to upgrade firmware. So you could get, if you do a remote location, you can give the local user a password that allows them into the system just to do a firmware update. So you don't have to roll a truck and go all the way there just to press a firmware update button. There are some other commands, but I'm not going to bother with those for the time being. What I am going to do is highlight Sound Machine as a commercial service that we support. Sound Machine is brilliant. It has, as I say, 55 million tracks, 500 radio stations. I don't get paid by Sound Machine, but I think it's a really good service, and it's available in Australia. So you can browse the various Brazilian radio stations, not that many of them. Eclectic Lounge, there's more of those. So I can browse stations. I can save stations. So you can see I've actually saved a load of my stations. I've also done some artist stations that are based on individual artists, kind of like Pandora over here in the States. I'll go to the pink ones in a minute and show you those. So you can save those, and if you look in my stations under here, you'll see the same group. So it's mapped in our BlueOS app, just the same as in here. I can make mixes, and mixes are cool because I can add radio stations together. And then I can say, well, I want more indie folk in this, and I only want mellow indie folk, save that. And again, Craig's mix, you'll see that in mixes. There it is. Start it playing, there's Craig's mix going on. I can set schedules graphically, really useful. So here's a schedule. You can see in the morning, I'm playing vocal jazz from 9 to midday. In the afternoon, Monday through Wednesday, I'm playing bossa nova, indie rock and electronic Thursday and Friday, and modern lounge on Saturday. And now I've got some early morning music going a couple of days. Again, I can see my schedules here, and I can start them from here. There we go, some jazz. I can do messages. It comes with some messages, but I can record messages. I can, add a message, upload a message. So you record the message you want. It'll ask you where it is. You upload the file, the MP3. It'll approve it, and then it's available from the cloud to any players connected to this account. Again, I can go in here, see all my messages in here. I can then schedule the messages. I can schedule them for playback. So I could say, okay, my COVID message, I want to play it every 3 songs between 9 and 7 at night on weekdays. Done. And that'll intersperse the message. And I can play it on a time basis. If it's one-off, I can add as many messages as I like. And I can have a hierarchy of users. If I have a large deployment, we're doing 400 liquor stores in Virginia at the moment, and some users have access to all of the players in any of the stores. Some have access just to a region within Virginia. Some have access just to one of the players. So really good integration between Sound Machine and us. Great service, $55 a month in Australia for all of that functionality. I think that is all I was going to cover. Is there any last questions? We've done installations. The company's 3 years old, but we've gained quite a lot of momentum, particularly in the last year. And we've done installations, for example, here in the States, from the US Senate down, from some big universities, Alaska State, UPenn, Penn State, done some big stadiums. We were at Prudential Center in New York last week. We're in the Staples Center in LA, and Jacksonville Jaguars, chains of stores, museums, cannabis stores, filling stations, gas filling stations, all sorts of places. So basically, if you need background music, which you do in any installation you do, we are your option. Literally, we are the only game in town when it comes to a complete ecosystem of streaming audio hardware specifically for commercial installations. So with, can Bluesound Pro team assist with the initial project design suggestions? Yes, we can. I mean, obviously it depends how detailed you need us to be, but yeah, I mean, we do that regularly. We're doing, what are we doing at the moment? I'm doing a shopping mall in Paris. We're doing a whole load of pop-ups with Steelcase. So yeah, we can do that. Thank you very much for your time, and have a great rest of your day. I can't even remember what time. I think it's early morning your time. It's what is it here? 3 o'clock in the afternoon here in Portland. Any last questions? No, can't see anything. All right, if you have any questions afterwards, I'm Graham Harrison. My email address is gharrison@lenbrook, lenbrook.com. Or you can find me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Graham Harrison, easy to find. And Graham spelled G-R-A-E-M-E, which is also fairly common in Australia. All right, thanks very much for your time, guys, and hopefully see you when I come across for Integrate. Cheers.